Hey everybody, I'm here with John and Anna from Gamepadla, a website and some software that is looking to do something that we all care about very much, lag testing. So I actually, Robert from Retro Fighters, the controller company, was the person who referred me to your website. And as soon as I saw it, I just went, oh, I have to talk to these people. This is exactly the type of thing that we love doing. So thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thank you.
I guess the basic overview of what Gamepadla is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you have two pieces of software that you could use just by installing on Windows, and you could have some basic test results done. But if you add a latency tester with an Arduino, you could get very accurate tests because it'll cycle through button pushes. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. The software version, it's only polling rate measurement, and its latency of software version is not ideal. It's synthetic
So,
format.
the way we've done latency testing recently is using the Mr. FPGA project, and we solder a wire to a button to on the controller as well as ground, and then basically, I think it's what the same as what you're doing, so that the software will trigger the button, so you could get hundreds of button presses a minute without sitting there having to manually measure anything. Is that
Yes,
what yours
correct.
does?
I inspired by Mr. FPGA,
Yes.
and I see that review of that program, and I understand the basic method,
Mhm.
and I think why to not create a program version
For Windows.
for all
Yeah.
people who do not need to buy the Mr. FPGA device because
Mhm.
it's too expensive for $400 or something like that. And for input lag measurement, it's a lot. For emulators, yes, good. For input lag measurement, the software based on Python is good for me.
Completely agree. I would never tell somebody to buy a Mister just to test lag on controllers. If you like the other things it does, then this is an amazing feature that goes with it. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially because you can get an Arduino kit that you could assemble together. You could probably build your GPDL latency tester for under $20, I'm assuming, right? Or maybe under 30, but not
Under
expensive
10
at all.
on AliExpress, you may buy the Arduino for $3.
Yeah. Yeah. So even after anything else you need in shipping, you're still looking at a very cheap tester. And
Yes.
that's awesome.
It's my goal to create a cheap tester for every people, for all whole world.
Yes. So I think people who actually care about gaming always want to read about testing and watch videos on this stuff, and they care about the results. But I do think that anybody who makes controllers or anybody who might be a professional gamer might want to test these things. Well, if you make controllers, you definitely want to test them. But if you're a pro gamer, I think that having the peace of mind knowing that your tools are working properly is a good thing. I mean, if you raced cars, you'd want to make sure the engine was working before you get on the track, and it's not really much of a difference. You want to make sure that all of the things that you have are functioning properly. So, even if I know some pretty high end gamers that even if they bought a controller that people have tested 10 times, they might still want to test their own just to make sure that nothing happened. They didn't have a weird software update on it or something like that. So I do think what you're doing is important for a lot of people. I would like to ask about the difference between the polling rate tester and the stick rotation method tester. How do either of those work?
I have the text. I prepare some, so I
Cool.
read it to you. Okay.
Yep.
First of all, I want to inform all gamepad users that it's impossible to detect the real latency of gamepad by software. The same X input test able to detect only the polling rate. And based on it, we can get the delay between polling the stick's position. But this process is physically unable to tell us the latency between gamepad and PC. That is why this latency cannot be a standard, and you should not base your decision on this data. Nevertheless, sometimes it happens the X input test latency data is the same as the latency data that was taken with the help of special device. For example, DualSense via Bluetooth shows an average delay of 5 milliseconds, almost the same as it in software testing with special device. This can lead misconception. The software testing really measures the real latency, but it's really just a coincidence. For example, Guli Kit King Kong 2 Pro in X input test has average latency 10 milliseconds, while testing with the GPDL tester relevated 27 milliseconds. This is a huge difference, which makes it clear that it's impossible to test delay programmatically.
So that makes sense, but I think I would like to add one more thing to it. Let's say you use the GPDL tester and you get one measurement, and then you verify it via the software method. And even if they're not the same, let's just say you get 5 milliseconds on GPDL and 10 milliseconds using software, but you do it a couple of times and you make sure the next time you go for a gaming match, you could just fire up that software tester and make sure it still says 10 milliseconds, because with Windows, there's a lot of things that happens in the background. There's a lot of times where you'll open a program that will slow your computer down. So taking 30 seconds to open up a program, run that quick stick rotation method, and make sure that the latency is the same as it was before could be a very quick way for people to double check. And maybe you might think, oh no, it's too high. Let me reboot my computer and try again. So while I agree that the GPDL version is what people should be publishing the numbers for, I really think the software version is very helpful. And I think as my fellow gamers and nerds are listening to this, they're going to come up with other ways to use that as well. So even though it might not be the measurement that says this is what the latency of the controller is, I still think it's very, very helpful and a really cool piece of software. So thank you for making it. So Microsoft Windows sometimes can be very laggy, could add a lot of
Mhm.
lag to your input. When you're using the GPDL tester, does that test the lag using Windows software? Does that affect the latency when you go through
Mhm.
Windows?
My program is not to do any correction for prevent delay what creates the windows, and yeah, platform can make some kind of delay because drivers, because other variables. um, and my program is basically created for Windows and for Gamepad on this system.
So I actually think that's fine, because that would also help people test overall system latency, depend on their computer as well. So let's say you use the PlayStation DualSense controller, the DualShock controller, which is very low latency. Your reading of 5.54 milliseconds is basically the same that we got using Mister. So if they run that in their Windows machine and they're getting higher than that, then they know they need to tweak the software, because then it would be a Windows problem, not a controller problem. So I still think that's really helpful. I do think too. Um, do you have any plans on making a Linux version of this as well?
Actually, all Linux user can run this software, open Python, copy paste the script to file, and open this Python file, run code on console. Linux users know how it doing, so no need to compile it to one file, for example.
I think I have a couple of friends that might take something like that and make a USB stick that you boot from. So you could boot into a low latency Linux and then run your software so that you could remove some of the software issues that you might run into, which it looks like your latency measurements match up exactly with what we've already found. But I think from what you've started, people would be really happy to do that. Um, Now with the getting the Arduino and for the GPDL latency tester, you basically just need to plug the Arduino into your PC and then solder some connections. But is there anything else that needs to be done? Do you need to change it? Obviously, you need to flash it with the correct software. But is there anything special about the hardware that you need?
Arduino and For the safety, I recommend to use resistors, two resistors. It's a need to prevent the high voltage what Arduino can provide to gamepad. I already burn out to gamepads because first version of my device is over voltage in cable connection mode. On Bluetooth mode, this is not a problem, but when you connect gamepads via cable, it can be a problem with
Mm.
high voltage of Arduino. 5 volt is enough to burn the gamepad jakoś tak.
Have you considered selling pre-configured Arduino boards for this?
On this time, no, it's totally free and everyone can make it at home DIY все таке. But maybe on future, yes, but only when the gamepad will not. I will be sure that user do not burn the gamepad. I close to this, but I need more tests, more users, more experience, and I wish to users on all world will doing what I doing, and we create community who in this community help me to improve my work. But now I have maybe 2 3 people who create this device. I can see this because on my site when a user to submit data,
Mhm.
I can see the result on my database, and almost all people create only software measurement. And I wish to GPDL become more famous.
Oh, it will be. And, before this even goes live, I know about 10 people that will start ordering the parts to make them to test their controllers. So this is you've made something very cool, and I'm very glad that Robert from Retro Fighters passed it along to me, because this is your audience right here. These are people that are going to be just as excited as we are about this stuff. So
Glad to
because
hear
you're
that.
right. I mean, if you don't already own a Mister, why would anybody spend that much money on it? Whereas this one, spending a couple of bucks and just a few minutes of your time, I mean, this is going to be a big deal. So this is very cool.
Thank you.
Now, when these are run, you talked about your database and getting the numbers back. How are you sharing these all on your website? I see you have quite a few controllers on here that have the latency listed, but is that something that you're going to share with everybody? Do you have an open wiki that you're going to be publishing this data on?
This data already on the web, on the Gamepadla. No, for example, you can open Xbox controller, and on this link you can see the Xbox Series controller latency. And this panel have two tabs: buttons and sticks. The button tab shows the Arduino GPDL tests, the real latency tests, and the stick tab shows the polling rate tests of the X input tester like program. Actually, Gamepadla, but not GPDL. I really hard to create the naming of my software. I already have three soft. It's polling rate tester, GPDL Arduino based tester, and Gamepadla. It's polling rate shows only polling rate of the gamepad. This program do not submit any data. Gamepadla tester, it's improved version of X input tests, and GPDL tester, it's test for the latency for Arduino. It's three separate software program.
Very cool. And so when people run these tests, does it automatically send the data back to you to collect all of this data, or is that
Uh,
something they have to submit?
Submit only when people submit this data, I can see this data. But when I see the new gamepad tests, what people are submitted, I even create a new gamepad for my site to publish these tests. I moderate all what people send into my site.
That is very cool. And the to submit it is built directly into the app?
No, when you create your test for watch your result, you must submit your data to the website, and this data will be not moderated and will be able only for user who submits this data.
When to create an account to do that, do you just go to log in and then create an account?
Just log in with Google. Google login, 2 clicks. Login and select Google account. Automatically, everything else will be automatically.
Okay, cool.
I simply make this simple because I like when sites is simple.
Agreed. Yeah. So this is great. I've had your website up this whole time, and I'm logging in now just to check it out. So if I have any more questions or anything, but this is very cool. This is I think this is exactly what a lot of people were looking for. And so when you're logged in, where's the place where you could go to submit?
Uh, if you want to submit something, you must first of all download the program for making measurements. Make some measure, and you can see the page when the submit is available.
Perfect. This works out really well. So, what are your next steps for this? Do you have anything else in mind, or is the next steps basically just collecting info and updating the website?
Collecting info and updating the website. But actually, I have some great idea how improve the site. I wish to make the versus page when you
Mhm.
can open 2 gamepads. Now we have this page. I can even, for example, here we can measure the 8-bit Do Pro 2 and Asus ROG Raikiri Pro. But on this page, I submit you on chat. But
Mhm.
on this page, mm, we can look only for latency. But for example, 8-bit Do Pro 2 has a gyroscope that Asus ROG Raikiri Pro has not. And
Mhm.
this data on future I will show, and people who check what gamepad I wish to buy can measure these parameters, and my site is show comparison.
That's a very cool idea. I like that, and that way, because you have the features and the latency. So maybe one controller might have a little more latency, but if it has a feature you're really looking for, then perfect. So that's very cool. So for people to support the project, especially for people who appreciate what you do, but they just don't have the time to test controllers, I see you have a Ko-fi page to donate, and also the links on your controllers to buy seem like you have affiliate links on here as well.
Yes,
Correct?
it's affiliate links to Amazon and AliExpress.
I'm glad you did that because that's a very easy way to make some money where that's very non-intrusive. It's not like, even if it has the most lag, you're still going to put an affiliate link on it, so you're not biased. You're not trying to force people to buy one thing. It's just here's affiliate links to everything. I like that a lot. Um, so, are you two competitive gamers? Is what really drove you to make this test?
Um, First of all, I have a Ukrainian channel, Tech blog, where I create a huge project with testing the gamepad. Uh, I make it more than maybe 5 years, and I buy the expensive camera, lightning, microphones, but in my country, it's not so popular. Maybe I'm the first person who tells the people, "Look, this input lag is huge. This is shitty gamepad." People, oh, really? It's interesting. But when I go to Reddit, I see the people interest the input lag more than 10 years, or maybe, and I understand I can show my
Mhm.
experience and my methods, and I think the people,
All around the world, people are going to want this. All
yes,
around the
yes,
world.
more interested in this thematic. It's bigger communities and in my country. And on this channel, you can see I have a lot of stuff. VR guide how buy items on American store and deliver it to Ukraine. Projectors, 3D printing already. But gamepads is not only thematic what I'm created, but maybe it's the main theme.
Yeah, that's cool. So, is there anything else that you'd like people to know about Gamepadla, about your other channel, or just you have a bunch of people that I'm sure are going to be listening and really interested in your work. So, is there anything else that you wanted to tell them? Or
Що ми йому хочемо сказати?
Ну так,
М,
все, що хочеш.
it's okay. You don't have to have anything, but the reason I ask is very often when I do these podcasts with people, at the end I'll ask that question, and they'll say, "Well, yeah, you forgot to ask me about this," and they have a whole other thing that I just forgot to ask about. So I
No,
just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
actually, I have the video guide how to create the GPDL tester in home by DIY method, and I wish all people to see this guide, and it helps them to make measurement, make the correct measurement on input lag without any skills. Because on this video, my girlfriend, who never soldering iron,
Yep.
anything, she create this device, and it works instantly. It's really easy. And I wish to all people, do not afraid to create something with hands on home.
Yeah, and this is actually a good starter project because a lot of people want to get into modifying their original consoles, but they're afraid to hurt their original consoles. And building an Arduino board and soldering pieces to that, it's perfect because it's nice big pins to solder to. But if you mess up, you're only out a few dollars instead of a classic rare console that you might be working on. So it's a great first project.
Even now, sometimes I crash some device what I using. It's always a risk. Don't forget about this, but it's interesting. I wish all
Yeah,
people have this experience.
agreed. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. I'm really excited to show this video to people and to get people working on this and start testing more controllers. So I think what you're doing is awesome, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with people.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you.
Cool. All right. Well, we are gonna definitely keep in touch, and I will update everybody whenever there's new software updates, or if you decide to make pre-assembled versions of these things. I'll let you know. I'll let people know when they're up for sale. But if not, you could do it yourself right now fairly easily.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.